Our star QB broken and the season in CHECK? The BOMB no one in Ashburn wants to admit. The QB1 spot is shaking. A battle-scarred veteran takes the reins. But will Kingsbury's system hold up without the dual magic of the hurt prodigy? This is not a drill. DMV. If you don't stay, you'll never know why this change could save or bury our hopes in September. But that's not all, because injuries are forcing desperate moves in the roster no one saw coming. A rookie running back is about to take on a responsibility that could define his career, and coaches are considering defensive changes that might be key to saving the season. If you miss these news, you miss your team's immediate future. Subscribe now because what's coming could change everything. The nightmare we all fear could be becoming reality. Jaden Daniels did not practice this Wednesday, and Marcus Mariota is preparing to start on Sunday against the Raiders. I'll tell you this, when your 24-year-old franchise quarterback, the same one who led us to the NFC Championship game, can't even practice, we've got a serious problem. Dan Quinn was clear as day. Daniels must complete at least one full practice before he'd even consider putting him on the field. And I think Quinn is being smart here, because what good is a 60% Daniels when we could have 100% Mariota? Now I ask you, are you willing to trust a 31-year-old veteran who hasn't been a starter since 2022? But let's dig deeper into this situation, because the reality is more complex than it seems. Mariota is not just any veteran. He has 76 games as a starter in his NFL career, including playoff experience and high-pressure moments. When he played with Tennessee, he led the Titans to the playoffs in 2017, something many forget. His experience isn't theoretical. It's practical and tested in real fire. Mariota's numbers last season were more than respectable. Completed 77.3% of his passes with 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in 3 appearances. But I'll tell you this, those numbers only tell part of the story. What the stats don't show is how Mariota handled the pressure, how he communicated with the offensive line, how he maintained the team's confidence when he stepped into tough situations. Remember the context of his appearances last year. They weren't garbage time or comfortable situations. Mariota stepped in when the team needed stability, and he provided it. His chemistry with Terry McLaurin was evident. His ability to find Zach Ertz on intermediate routes was solid, and his management of the ground game perfectly complemented what Brian Robinson Jr. was doing. But here's what worries me deeply. The difference in playing styles between Daniels and Mariota is significant. Daniels is an elite runner, a natural improviser who extends plays with his mobility. Mariota, while mobile, is more of a traditional pocket quarterback at this stage of his career. Cliff Kingsbury will have to adjust his entire game plan if Mariota is the starter. The rollouts that make Daniels special, those magical improvisations that turned third and longs into first and tens last season, won't be available with Mariota. He'll have to rely more on his arm, on quick reads, on passing accuracy. And I believe he can do it, but it will require a complete adaptation of the offensive scheme. Daniels' injury was clearly noticeable at the end of the game against Green Bay. He was sacked 4 times, and each time he got up, he looked more labored. Quinn mentioned that Daniels wants to do everything all the time, and I interpret that as a warning. Daniels played injured, put the team above his health, but sometimes that warrior mentality can backfire. Now Quinn is being the adult in the room. He's protecting his star quarterback from himself, and I greatly respect that decision. Because what if Daniels goes out on Sunday at 60% and suffers a more serious injury? What if that knee doesn't respond and we lose our franchise quarterback for the rest of the season? Quinn's evaluation isn't just medical. It's tactical. He mentioned specific skills by position that Daniels must demonstrate. Translation: it's not enough for Daniels to be able to walk or jog. He needs to be able to escape pressure, make those lateral rollouts, have the explosiveness to turn third and longs with his legs. Without that dimension to his game, Daniels becomes a very different quarterback. And here's the million-dollar question. If Daniels can't do the things that make him special, Isn't it better to have Mariota doing the things he's best at? Mariota has a better arm than people remember. His accuracy on intermediate routes is solid, and his experience in critical moments is invaluable. The Raiders are going to prepare all week thinking about Daniels. They'll study how to contain his mobility, how to force him to stay in the pocket, how to neutralize those rollouts that crushed him in past seasons. But if Mariota is the starter, all that preparation becomes irrelevant. It's a tactical advantage that Quinn might be considering. But let's be honest about the risks. Mariota hasn't been a starter since 2022 with Atlanta, where he had a decent but not spectacular season. He completed 61.3% of his passes with 2,219 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions in 13 games. They're not terrible numbers, but they're not the numbers we expect from a quarterback who will lead a playoff aspiring. Team chemistry is another crucial factor. Daniels has developed a special connection with his receivers, especially with McLaurin and Ertz. That chemistry isn't built overnight. Mariota will have to rely on his knowledge of the system and his receivers, ability to be in the right places at the right times. But here's what gives me hope. Mariota knows this system. He's been here for over a year, has worked with these receivers in practice, knows Kingsbury's tendencies. It's not like we're putting a completely new quarterback in a completely new system. The offensive line will also need to adjust. Protecting Mariota is different from protecting Daniels. Mariota needs more time in the pocket. He doesn't have the same escapability, but he also doesn't need the same complexity in rollout and lateral movement protection. It can be a simplification that helps a line that has had consistency issues. Quinn called Mariota an elite leader, and I think that characterization is important. Mariota has been captain on multiple teams, has handled pressure situations, has been the kind of veteran that other players respect. That leadership presence will be crucial if he has to step in as the starter. Daniels' numbers in these first 2 weeks have been solid. 59.7% completions, 433 yards, and 3 touchdowns without interceptions. But he's also been sacked 8 times in 2 games, suggesting the offensive line has had issues, or he's holding the ball too long waiting for plays to develop. Mariota, with his experience, might be better at getting the ball out faster, making more effective pre-snap reads, adjusting protections more efficiently. These are skills that come with experience, and at this moment, that experience might be exactly what we need. But the reality no one wants to face is this. If we lose Daniels for multiple weeks, our aspirations to repeat last season's magic become dramatically complicated. Daniels wasn't just the offensive rookie of the year. He was the identity of this team. His unique ability to make plays with his legs fundamentally changed how teams had to prepare for us. However, I believe underestimating Mariota would be a mistake. He's been waiting for this opportunity, working quietly, keeping ready for when his number is called. And now, potentially, that moment has come. The question is the rest of the team ready to adapt to a completely different style of play? Finally, fans have been screaming for this all season, and a devastating injury to Austin Eckler finally opened the door for Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt as our main running back. I think sometimes tragedies create opportunities, and this is the golden opportunity this rookie needed. Eckler suffered a torn Achilles in Lambeau Field, an injury that not only ends his season, but could change the course of his career. At 32, recovering from an Achilles tear is a monumental challenge. Let's look at similar cases. Cam Akers managed to return after the same injury, but was never the same explosive runner. Richard Sherman returned, but was a cornerback, a position that doesn't require the same explosiveness as a running back. Eckler arrived in Washington with high expectations. His success with the Los Angeles Chargers had established him as one of the most versatile running backs in the league, especially as a receiver out of the backfield. In his best seasons with the Chargers, Eckler had combined over 1,000 rushing yards with over 100 receptions. That versatility was exactly what Cliff Kingsbury needed in his offensive system. But the reality is Eckler never found his rhythm in Washington. In 2 games, he had totaled only 83 rushing yards on 21 carries, an average of 3.95 yards per attempt that was below his career standards. His age was beginning to show, and the loss of a step that had made his years with the Chargers special was evident to anyone paying attention. Eckler is out of contract in 2026, and I'll tell you this, the chances of his return are practically nil. The organization will take this as an opportunity to completely reinvent its backfield, and Krosky Merritt is perfectly positioned to be the center of that. Reinvention. Krosky Merritt's story is an emotional roller coaster that could be a Hollywood movie. The kid was a star in Memphis, amassing over 1,300 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns in his junior season. His talent was undeniable, his vision was elite, and his combination of power and speed had him projected as an early round draft pick. But then came the transfer drama. Krosky Merritt decided to transfer to Arizona for his senior season, seeking greater exposure and better opportunities in a Pac-12 program. Everything seemed perfect until the NCAA intervened. After just 1 game with Arizona, a game where he had shown flashes of brilliance, the NCAA revoked his eligibility due to transfer issues. That decision destroyed his draft stock. Scouts who had been following his progress suddenly had to evaluate a player based on a very limited sample of recent gains. His draft projection plummeted from a possible 3rd or 4th round pick to a day 3 prospect with serious questions about his preparation and recent play. But Adam Peters and the Washington scouting staff saw something other teams overlooked. They didn't focus on off-field circumstances, but on the pure talent Krosky Merritt had shown throughout his college career. They selected him with pick 245, the last selection of the 2025 draft, technically making him Mr. Irrelevant. That designation was the additional motivation Krosky Merritt needed. From day 1 of training camp, he carried a chip on his shoulder, working as if he had to prove that he belongs not just on an NFL roster, but as a significant contributor. The training camp reports were consistently positive. Coaches noticed his exceptional vision, his ability to find small spaces and convert them into significant gains. His footwork was polished, his balance was natural, and his understanding of blocking concepts was surprisingly advanced for a rookie. But it was in preseason where Krosky Merritt truly announced his arrival. In 3 preseason games, he totaled 312 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, showcasing the versatility that had made him special in Memphis. He wasn't just a between-the-tackles runner. He could bounce plays outside, catch passes from the backfield, and contribute on special teams. His performance in the final preseason game against Baltimore was particularly impressive. 127 rushing yards on 18 carries, including a 45-yard touchdown where he displayed the combination of vision, patience, and closing speed that had made him special in college. After that game, there was no doubt he had earned his spot on the 53-man roster. Krosky Merritt's explosion in Week 1 against the Giants was confirmation that his preseason success hadn't been a fluke. 86 rushing yards on 16 carries, including a 17-yard touchdown that electrified FedEx Field. But more impressive than the yards was how he earned them. His touchdown displayed his entire range of skills. He took the handoff, saw the original hole was closed, made a sharp cut to the left, broke a linebacker's tackle, accelerated down the sideline, and then cut inside to avoid a safety coming to make the tackle. It was 17 yards that required vision, agility, power, speed, and football IQ. What impressed the coaches most was his composure. There were no rookie nerves, no indecision, just a confident and controlled young runner who seized his opportunity. Krosky Merritt understands his position's potential impact, knows that he could be the future of Washington's ground game, and that's immense pressure for any rookie, much less a 7th-round pick. But here's what gives me confidence. Krosky Merritt doesn't behave like a 7th-round pick. His preparation is meticulous, his understanding of the system is advanced, and his confidence on the field is undeniable. He's earned the respect of veterans like Jeremy McNichols, who has publicly praised his work ethic in football, IQ. McNichols, is going to be crucial in this transition. He brings experience, knows the system, and can handle pass protection situations that are still being refined for Krosky Merritt. But McNichols has never been a high-volume runner, and I don't think he has the athletic versatility to be the primary answer. Chris Rodriguez Jr. will also see more action after being inactive the first 2 weeks. Rodriguez has more experience. He was drafted ahead of Krosky Merritt last year, but he's never shown the same athletic ceiling. He's more of a complementary back, ideal for short yardage and goal line situations, but not the dynamic back who can change a game. The addition of Chase Edmonds to the practice squad adds an interesting dimension. Edmonds has history with Kingsbury from his time in Arizona, knows the system, and could be promoted quickly if Krosky Merritt struggles with the transition. But Edmonds has also had injury problems in recent years, and his best days seem to be behind him. What makes Krosky Merritt special isn't just his ability as a runner, but his versatility as a receiver. In Memphis, he was one of the most productive pass-catching backs in the country, with over 40 receptions in his junior season. That ability translates perfectly to Kingsbury's system, which constantly utilizes running backs as passing options. His blocking has also been a positive surprise. For a rookie, his technique and aggressiveness in pass protection situations have been impressive. He studied film religiously, working with the coaching staff to understand not just his responsibilities, but the tendencies of the pass rushers he faces. But let's be realistic about the challenges. Asking a rookie 7th-round pick to carry the main load of the ground game for a team with playoff aspirations is immense pressure. Every run will be analyzed, every fumble will be magnified, every lost game will be questioned. Opposing teams are now going to game plan specifically to stop Krosky Merritt. They'll study his film. They'll identify his tendencies. They'll develop specific schemes to neutralize his strengths. That scouting attention is something completely new for him. The physical workload is also a concern. Krosky Merritt has never had more than 20 touches in an NFL game. Now he could be seeing 25 to 30 touches regularly, a volume that requires not only athletic ability, but mental and physical conditioning at the highest level. But I believe he's ready for this challenge. His mindset has been evident since day one. He doesn't act like a rookie, doesn't act like a late pick, doesn't act like someone who's just grateful to be here. He acts like someone who knows he belongs, who knows he can contribute at the highest level. The next 4 games will define not only this season for Krosky Merritt, but potentially his entire career. If he can handle the pressure, produce consistently, be the spark this offense needs, we could be witnessing the birth of a star, and I have faith he can do it. Because everything in his story, from overcoming NCAA controversy to earning a spot on this roster, tells me that Krosky Merritt is made of something special. Injuries are forcing Dan Quinn and his staff to think outside the box. And the latest idea might be moving Johnny Newton to edge after Dietrich Wise Jr. got injured for the entire season. I tell you this, when your 2nd-round pick from last year is playing only 30% of the defensive snaps, something drastic needs to change. Wise's injury is devastating for multiple reasons. Not only do we lose a player who provided 10 additional pounds compared to Clelin Ferrell, whom he replaced, but we also lose stability, experience, and versatility in a position where depth was already a concern. Wise had been exactly the solid veteran this defense needed. But let's be honest about Newton's situation, because his lack of impact so far has been one of the biggest disappointments of this young season. Newton was a highly valued selection when Adam Peters picked him in the 2nd round of the 2024 draft, pick 36 overall. At the time, many analysts thought it was a brilliant choice, a potential steal due to injury problems that affected his draft stock. Newton had been a dominant force in Illinois. In his junior season, he recorded 44 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks from the defensive tackle position. They weren't spectacular numbers, but what impressed scouts was his raw athleticism, his explosive first step, and his range of rush moves that were unusual for a defensive tackle. The problems began with injuries in his senior season. A foot injury limited him significantly, and then additional issues kept him out of several crucial games. By the combine, Newton wasn't 100%, and his performance and athletic measurements didn't fully reflect his true athletic ability. But Washington's scouting staff had done their homework. They had studied film of Newton when healthy, had evaluated his athletic ceiling, and determined that with a year of development and full recovery, he could be one of the draft steals. That evaluation has not been validated by field production so far. Newton is listed at 6 feet 2 inches and 295 pounds, dimensions that put him in a difficult category for the modern NFL. He's not big enough to be a dominant nose tackle like Dexter Lawrence II, who weighs 342 pounds. He's not long enough to be a disruptive 3 technique like Aaron Donald, who, although he weighs less, has longer arms and a lower center of gravity. The modern prototypes for defensive tackles are clear. Either you're an immovable monster like Lawrence, Chris Jones, or Vita V, or you're an elite pass rusher from the interior like Donald, Cameron Hayward, or Zach Allen. Newton, so far, hasn't shown to be either. His lack of production has been evident in multiple aspects. In pass rush situations, Newton has struggled to generate consistent pressure. His initial get-off is good, but once offensive linemen set, he's had trouble gaining leverage and creating disruption. His rush moves, though diverse in theory, haven't been effective against NFL competition. In run defense situations, Newton has been equally inconsistent. He's been washed out of plays too frequently, allowing running backs to find cutback lanes that shouldn't be available. His anchor strength, the ability to hold his ground against double teams, has been insufficient by NFL standards. But here's where the proposal to move into the edge becomes intriguing. Newton had played multiple positions at Illinois, including time as a defensive end in passing situations. His collegiate experience included both interior and exterior alignment, meaning the concept isn't entirely alien to him. The numbers this season support the theory that Newton could be more effective outside. He's lined up over the offensive tackle almost as much as in the A and B gaps against guards. On those exterior snaps, he's shown more flashes, more ability to use his athleticism to create mismatches against tackles unaccustomed to his. Combination of speed and quickness. The timing of this consideration is perfect due to current depth in the interior defensive line. Javon Kinlaw has been exactly what the organization expected when they signed him. His combination of size, 6'5", 319 pounds, and athleticism has been effective against both the run and in-pass rush situations. Eddie Goldman provides the necessary anchor in the center, and Darren Payne continues to be a constant force. Kinlaw was already playing over the tackle in about 25% of the snaps this season, a utilization based on his experience with the New York Jets, where he had played exterior almost as much as interior. His versatility allows the defense to maintain multiple looks without compromising effectiveness. The flexibility of Dorrance Armstrong Jr. also facilitates this potential transition. Armstrong can play almost any position on the defensive line, from nose tackle to edge rusher. His experience and football IQ make him the type of veteran presence that can cover multiple roles, while Newton adapts to a new position. Jacob Martin and Von Miller represent the type of specialized edge rushers who function best as stand-up ends, operating more like outside linebackers than traditional defensive ends. But neither has the size or versatility to be effective against the run in all situations. This is where Newton could find his niche. At 295 pounds, he has more beef than most edge rushers, making him more effective against running plays developing to his side. At the same time, his quickness and range of rush moves could be more effective against offensive tackles isolated. Compared to guards receiving constant help, NFL offensive tackles are generally larger than guards, but also more isolated. They don't have the same immediate help, can't rely on double teams in the same way, and frequently have to handle edge rushers one-on-one. For a player like Newton, whose strengths include quickness off the snap and a variety of rush moves. That isolation could be exactly what he needs. The transition wouldn't come without challenges. Newton would need to develop better technique for setting the edge against running plays. He'd have to learn to read different keys, understand route combinations affecting coverage responsibilities, and develop better hand usage specifically against offensive tackles. But the potential benefits are significant. If Newton can find success as an edge rusher, he suddenly becomes a more valuable weapon for defensive coordinator. Joe Wick Jr., a defensive lineman who can rush from multiple positions, creates matchup problems for offensive coordinators, forcing them to account for threats from multiple angles. The situation also benefits from the defensive system that Quinn and Witt have implemented. Their scheme emphasizes versatility, movement, and creating confusion for offensive lines. A player like Newton, who can line up both interior and exterior, fits perfectly into that philosophy. The developmental aspect is also important to consider. Newton is still young, still learning how to be a professional, still developing his body for NFL competition. Sometimes a change of scenery, even within the same team, can provide the spark a young player needs to unlock his potential. The next weeks will be crucial in determining if this transition is viable. Newton will need to show improved technique, better consistency, and most importantly, results that translate to game situations. 30% of defensive snaps for a second-round pick in his second year is unacceptable. But if moving him to the edge significantly increases that number, the organization will have found value from what could have been a draft mistake. The history of successful position changes in the NFL provides some optimism. Players like Jason Pierre-Paul, who moved from defensive tackle to edge rusher, have found much more success after the change. Sometimes finding the right position for a player's skill set is more important than forcing them into a traditional role. For Newton, this might be the opportunity he's been waiting for. A chance to prove that his draft position wasn't a mistake, that his potential wasn't overestimated, that he can be a valuable contributor to a team with playoff aspirations. And I believe he can make this transition successfully, because sometimes all a young player needs is the right opportunity to show what he can really do. Commanders fans, these 3 news stories show us a harsh reality. We're at a defining moment in our season. Can Mariota keep our playoff hopes alive while Daniels recovers? Is Kroski Merritt ready to shoulder the weight of the ground game at the most critical moment? Can Newton finally justify his second-round selection in a new position? I believe these next weeks will define not only this season, but the future of this franchise. Injuries are testing our depth, our character, and our adaptability. But here's what I know. This team has overcome adversity before, and it can do it again. This community we've built together is more than a channel. We're a burgundy and gold family that stands united through thick and thin. If you want to keep living every play, every decision, every crucial moment of this season with us, subscribe now and be part of this family that never gives up. Let me know in the comments. Do you trust Mariota to lead this team?